Hi, hello. I'm Mandy Grace, author of a handful of books. I'm actually recovering from a head cold situation, so I might sound a little funny. I have tea in case my throat gets too sore or whatever. My nose isn't stuffed up today, which is nice, but that doesn't mean it won't get that way as I talk. Who knows? So I also have Kleenex. This is a bit of a different kind of video than I usually do on my channel. I have actually thought about doing videos like this before, specifically with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I typed up the script after the second Doctor Strange movie, because I had thoughts about the Multiverse of Madness, and then, not good thoughts, and then I also, I typed up a script after the Spider-Man movie, which I actually tried to film that one a couple times, and then was like, this is not what I do on my channel, so I just didn't. But yeah, I think I'm gonna follow through this time and actually do it, and then maybe go back and make those other two videos, depending on if people are interested in this kind of thing on my channel. Usually I talk about my writing because I'm an author, but here we are. I do have a script for this video, but thus far have not been using it. I should preface all of this by saying I'm not a Tolkien expert. I am a reader who really loves his works, and the Silmarillion is my favorite because I'm a nerd. So basically what I'm saying is, when watching the first two episodes of The Rings of Power, which I just did the other day, which is why I'm making this video, I formed certain opinions on the show because of what I remember from reading Tolkien's books. But that's not to say what I remember is actually accurate. You know? So I'm going to discuss it based on what I remember because that's what formed my opinions. But like, if the things I remember are false, feel free to tell me. I'm not about to look them up. I'm lazy. Anyway, I have been trying to be very open-minded about all of this. When I initially heard about Rings of Power, the Tolkienites of the world were going crazy, and not in a good way. There was a lot of disgust. So I didn't want to go into it with that kind of negative mindset. So yeah, I've seen the first two episodes, and I have some thoughts, so I'm going to discuss them. I don't hate it. Don't really love it. I don't really care right now. Mostly I have, like, unresolved anticipation and whiplash. I'll explain that in a second. Now, like I said, I am trying to be open-minded about this. I used to be a purist, where, like, any book-to-screen adaptation, I would just hate it on principle. But that's not really the way I am now. I can enjoy both mediums for what they are, even with the differences. The books will always be better, mind you, but I can enjoy both. Case in point, the Harry Potter movies. They're fun and enjoyable, and I watch them. Also, they're not really like the books, and the movie viewers who don't read the books, I feel sorry for you because you will never meet the actual Ginny. Like, your Ginny is pathetic and lifeless, and our Ginny is badass and amazing, so, like, I apologize. But I can watch the movies and enjoy them. Like, I enjoy watching the Harry Potter movies. Anyway, the point is, I'm not a purist anymore. Like, I can see the differences, and I could rant about them if I wanted to, but also I can just watch the movies and enjoy them. Now that I think about it, this might be an Enneagram 9 thing of me, because I can see both sides here, and we're just gonna take the middle ground. Everyone, be happy. So, relevant backstory of mine before going into my discussion of the Rings of Power. The Silmarillion is my favorite book, which I realize is not what they're adapting, which is half the problem. I love The Lord of the Rings, I love The Hobbit, but the Silmarillion, like, completely captured my heart. The lore and the world building and, like, the history of it all, my head exploded, and it was amazing. I still remember the first time that I read that book. I was, with my brother. We were visiting friends of ours, staying there, and I was upstairs in a split level house, and every time I'd like read a chapter and then like run downstairs to where he was playing, like with Legos or something, and like I'd be like, oh my gosh, this is where the ends came from. This is crazy. And then I'd run upstairs and read another chapter, and then I'd run downstairs and be like, did you know the dwarves were not even created by Eru? They were created by one of Valar, who was bored and impatient and was like, where are the first children? Let me make my own. But then like it didn't work out because they couldn't do anything that he didn't tell them to do. But then Eru was nice and gave them free will anyway, and like, oh my gosh. Anyway, so and then I'd run upstairs and read another chapter, and it was crazy. I loved it. And I get that there are some rights issues regarding the Rings of Power, so they can't do the Silmarillion. They can do the things in the Lord of the Rings, like in the appendices and such, that relate back to the Silmarillion in some cases, but they can't actually do the Silmarillion. Which leads me to the question of why would you try? If you know you can't actually tell this story and you're going to have to do this little dance of like skirting around the things that you can't portray because you don't have the rights to them, why would you bother? Why? Just leave it alone. Okay? Just leave it alone. So that's the opinion I had going into this, was like, they can't do the story, but they're doing the story, so like, why? But then I was like, you know what, we're going to be open-minded about this. So I went from like, why are we even doing this, to this place of like, I'll give it a chance. But somewhere in the middle of that, I also bear the scars of being deeply disappointed by the Hobbit films. So, a little deeper backstory. I'm just giving you my life story with The Lord of the Rings and not actually telling you about the Rings of Power. It's fine. When I first read them in high school, I was staying up until like 1 a.m. on school nights to read them all until I finished them. And as soon as I finished them, I started them over again because I didn't want the story to end. And you know what? I read all 3 volumes front to back, and as soon as I got to the end, you'll never believe this, I started them over again because I didn't want the story to end, and I read all of them front to back again. And I did that like 12 times that year. I just kept rereading it, and then I started reading it aloud to my little sister because I just couldn't stop myself. And then I watched the movies, and I didn't like them. There was a lot changed. Some definitely not for the better. I mean, Faramir taking the ring to Osgiliath. Did you even read the source material, Peter Jackson? That would never happen. But I did learn to love those movies. Extended, obviously, the only real way to watch them. They are different from the books, but they're fun and they're enjoyable and they're very cinematic and amazing. And I watch them every year, sometimes twice a year. Definitely all 3 of them in a row. It's like a 12-hour watch-along experience, because that's the only way to do it. Yeah. I love them. I really do. I love them, and I like introducing other people to them, and it's just a delight. I absolutely adore them. So what I'm getting at is that despite differences from the Silmarillion, because I can't use the Silmarillion, the same sort of experience might happen with the Rings of Power, where I initially watch it and I just see the differences and I'm like, well, this is wrong. And then I'll watch it again and be like, you know what, this is actually fun and cinematic and it's a great story and whatever, you know? So it's possible that I might actually really love this series, you know? But then there's The Hobbit, which I was very excited about. The first one came out when I was in high school, I believe. Yes, I'm very young. Don't judge me. I remember counting down the days to it. I was so excited. I was just like exploding. And then I watched it. And the excitement was gone. The first one is bearable, to be fair. The first one is bearable. I've seen it a couple times. Martin Freeman is amazing as Bilbo. Absolutely love him. I really hate the Hobbit films. I really do. They're no good. They're so bloated and ridiculous, and like, why did this children's story turn into like this disaster of epic proportions? I don't know. Money, that's why. So yeah, no matter how many times I watch them, I really don't love the Hobbit films. So it's also possible with the Rings of Power that I will never love them. I don't know. Either of these things could happen, or neither of them. Who knows? That's basically the backstory. Let's get into the actual, like, what I feel about the Rings of Power now that I've watched the first 2 episodes. I don't love it. I don't hate it. It's giving me whiplash and, like I said, unresolved anticipation. So let me explain. Anticipating the story that I really love and then not seeing it has me all kinds of weirded out. And I'm 99% sure all of it is the copyright stuff. You know, there's certain things they can't do. which in theory is fine, but like if you can't tell the story, why are you trying? The point I'm getting at is that I don't think it's the creators being like, let's skip this thing for no reason, which would just be dumb. I think it's the creators being like, we can't do that thing legally. So, which just brings me back around to the question of like, why would you try? But okay. Basically, it's giving me whiplash as I'm watching it, where I'm like, oh my gosh, this thing is about to go down, and then the thing doesn't go down. We just kind of like whiz past it, and you're like, wait, what? Oh, okay, here we are. Yeah, which has been very uncomfortable as a viewer. Sorry about the dog barking. My biggest example of this is when Galadriel is like doing the prologue, telling us how the light of the trees was taken away, and then the elves ended up in Middle-earth. And she's like, yeah, Morgoth took the light of the trees, and we followed him to Middle-earth to beat him up, or whatever. And it's like, okay, that's a bit of an oversimplification of things, I feel like. Sorry about that. Talked for 20 minutes, and my camera was like, we're done here. I don't want to be done here. I wish the dog would stop barking. She's not going to, so I'm just going to keep going. On the oversimplification of things. On the one hand, I don't necessarily dislike it. The same sort of thing happened at the beginning of the Lord of the Rings movies, where they did the, like, prologue, which set you up with just enough of the history that you understood the story that followed. You know, it worked. I don't dislike that idea. With this specific prologue, I can't even speak, in The Rings of Power, it bothered me because of the way it was presented. Like, oversimplifying things probably because they can't talk about it because it's in the Silmarillion. Like, okay, that's fine. I didn't really want to see giant spiders, you know, anyway, so I don't mind that, like, the taking the light from the trees was oversimplified. What bothered me was and we ran to Middle-earth to beat him up, and it's like, that's not what happened. We're just skipping over, like, Fëanor and the Silmarils, and, like, the fact that he was like, I would like to go get them back from Morgoth because I'm greedy, and then he murdered elves to do it. Like, that was a huge deal. It was the first, what did they call it, like the kinslaying or whatever? Like, he murdered elves to go to Middle-earth. And, like, it's not even mentioned. It's just like, yeah, no, we nobly chased after Morgoth. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. Yeah, when the prologue was going and then the light of the trees faded, which was like a really beautiful sequence, that was one of the moments that I was like anticipating some sort of prologue-y exposition of that moment when the elves killed the elves in order to chase after Morgoth. And then it didn't happen, and I was like, what? What's going on? Which again is probably a copyrights issue, which again is like, why are we trying? And the fact that Fëanor and the Silmarils were name-dropped later just made it more weird for me. One other thing that has me wary when watching it, which might just be my overactive imagination and not, like, actually on the screen at all, I don't know, which is why I'm wary, and it really takes me out of, like, the emotional investment of watching it, because I'm like, wait a second, what's happening here? Is the relationship between Elrond and Galadriel, which, you know, on the surface seems like a sweet friendship, which is great. They're friends, that's fine. But there were a few scenes where I was like, is there romantic subtext here? Because I feel like there is, and that creeps me out, because he marries her daughter. So can we not do that? That's just weird. But again, it's not like overtly on screen, so that could just be my imagination seeing things that aren't there. So I can't judge The Rings of Power for that yet. But it is something that makes me, like, take a step back. Like, I'm not in the story watching it, because I'm like, is this going somewhere? Because I really hope it doesn't. And I can't take you seriously while I think that's happening. But, those two things aside, like the anticipating certain events, like the murder of elves, anyway, and then them not happening, and then also, like, is there a romance here that should not be happening? There's not, but, like, are they hinting at it? I don't know. Anyway, those two things are definitely, like, taking me out of the story a bit. With the romance thing, it could all be in my head. With the skipping of things, I know it's the copyright stuff, and, like, brings me back to the question of why are we even trying if we can't tell the story? Whatever. All of that aside, though, it's fun. I kind of enjoyed watching it. I wasn't watching it being like, wow, I hate this. I was watching it like, this is interesting, but wait, that's wrong. I could see this being fun. You know, I could see it being fun. I don't know if it is yet, but I could see it being something I continue to watch. Basically, I'm kind of meh. Like, I don't really care. I know I just ranted about it, but I rant about things regardless. Like, case in point, The Lord of the Rings. Love those films. As I said, I watch them. The extended, obviously, all the time. Absolutely adore them. They're so much fun. Yeah, like, I can spend a day just sitting down to watch all 3 of them back to back and not caring because they're so much fun and I love them. But at the same time, if you got me started talking about all the things that are wrong and different and changed and messed up about the Peter Jackson films, like, I could go on for days. Don't get me started on Faramir. We will sit here all day. So, yeah, I could rant and be angry for days about everything wrong with The Lord of the Rings, but at the end of the day, I really love those films. So, today, maybe got a little worked up about the Rings of Power, but at the end of the day, I don't care. I don't hate it. I don't love it. I'm just kind of like, well, this happened, and I'm not entirely sure why. I have to go see why the dog's barking like a maniac. I don't really have any, like, actual thoughts yet, I think, about the whole thing. Like, it's kind of fun, and it's cinematic and interesting, and I think if it was just, like, a fantasy series unrelated to The Lord of the Rings and I didn't, like, know the Silmarillion, whatever, like, if it was just a fantasy series, like, you know, I just stumbled across, like, Merlin on Netflix or whatever, you know, like, I think it would be good if it was just a random fantasy series. Like, it seems fairly well put together, and the story is interesting, and it's cinematic and all the things, you know, I think it would be good if I didn't know that it was connected to The Lord of the Rings, and not the Silmarillion, but yes, the Silmarillion. So, yeah. Definitely having source material, specifically source material that they can't use, is clouding my experience, but at the same time, I feel like if you're going to make stories with source material, in some fashion you are making them for the readers of the source material, so it's not necessarily clouding my, like, judgment as I watch it. It's supposed to color my enjoyment as I watch it. You know what I mean? Like, you don't take popular books and make them into movies for the book readers to not watch. You know? You know the book readers are going to watch it, and they're going to dissect it, and, like, you hope that they enjoy it, but anyway, what I'm getting at is that I don't think it's a bad thing that the source material is clouding my enjoyment as I watch. I think it's supposed to. And they're failing. But they're failing because they don't have rights to the source material. Which brings me back to, why are we trying to tell the story at all? All of that is to say, if you've seen it and you're a Tolkien nerd, or you're not and you just watched it randomly, let me know your thoughts nicely. Okay, Tolkien people, we're not gonna be angry and rude down in my comment section. I have seen you, fandom. You're a little crazy. And we're not bringing that over here. You can be passionate, you can respectfully discuss why you dislike things, but don't be crazy. Oh man. There's some really good stuff in the Silmarillion too. Oh well. Whatever. I'm curious, I haven't read the appendices in years. I'm curious what is in there that they're trying to adapt. Because, I mean, it's not the Silmarillion, so it's, I don't know, I don't remember how much is in there. I remember, the Aragorn Arwen love story is in there. It's been years since I've read The Lord of the Rings, you guys. I don't know, whatever.